Hey guys, Jared here from Gamer Slice, and at this point I should probably just call myself the beta guy, as I did when I was playing some Blacklight Retribution. Anyways, you guys won't get that. But anyways, so in this video I would like to talk about, just kind of share my impressions on the Battleborn beta. And I actually really enjoyed this game, and let me explain why. So, it's a MOBA, and some people I know say it's not a MOBA, but they're wrong, because it has a bunch of MOBA elements, like you have to, in a lot of game modes, escort minions to another portal, or maybe not necessarily to a portal, but they have a lot of modes that involve minions in there, and it's just large scale stuff, but a lot of it's player versus player, but it's also about escort, and it just adds to a more objective based game mode. And there's also a lot of similarities to Overwatch as well, but it's not exactly, Overwatch is not exactly a MOBA, not in the traditional sense at least. So the beta has two campaign missions. They both run about 30-35 minutes each, and it's the first two campaign missions, and there's 8 of them in the full version of the game. So they're giving you a quarter of their single player game. In fact, they're actually giving you more than that, and I'll explain that in a second. But these two campaign missions, they'll run you about 30-35 minutes, so the game in total is maybe about a 4 to 5 hour, probably about a 5 hour experience. And there was 2 modes in the multiplayer, and 1 map for each mode, Overgrowth and Paradise, and those that has a 30-minute match timer. So let's talk about the campaign. So here's the thing, I think this is where would be the best place to put it, or just maybe on the main menu. But this game, when the full version comes out, it needs a tutorial, because it kind of just throws you into the action. I did that on campaign because I didn't see the tutorial, but even in campaign, like, it kind of threw me in, and it wasn't until about halfway through the mission that I learned that particular character, or even the basic gameplay elements in general, like exactly what buttons it was to level up my character, and exactly how to use the skills, and I just didn't know enough going in, so they need some sort of a tutorial. The campaign, it's very funny. It's made by Gearbox, same guys that made Borderlands. They clearly state that in uh, a lot of their trailers and everything. But it's got that Borderlands sense of humor, and I think most of all it's pretty good. I don't think it hits as many of the high notes as what Borderlands does in these first 2 missions at least, but it's still pretty humorous at points. There's also overlap between campaign and multiplayer with, like, the characters. Like, they play. I mean, they play a bit differently, because one, you're going up against AI, ones you're going up against some AI, but actual players. So you might want to pick different characters that might be better in each mode. You can use the characters in both modes, and some of them you either play a campaign mission. When you beat the campaign mission, you unlock the character, or you can unlock every character just by hitting a certain level as well. You also have to be always connected online with this, so if you don't have an online connection, you can't even play the campaign in private, because you're basically uh, renting, well, not really renting, but you're getting a server. You're basically utilizing a server at that point, so you can't do it with no internet connection. But doing these campaign missions is a quite fast way to level up if you really want to just get some loot packs or unlock some characters quick. There are also, like, one of the major things with the level design is there are a lot of bosses and mini bosses, and there are also, so they're pretty fun. But there's section in level 2 where all the players have to be in one particular place, and sometimes this can be annoying, because some players are just going around doing their own thing and they don't realize that, or some person might be AFK, so that can kind of cause problems. But most of the time it goes, most players are fairly quick at getting to the place they need to be. But there's an interesting take on it too, where it seems like the villains actually change through levels. The different levels have some major boss enemy, and after that you can, like, unlock them and play as them. Or I'm not sure if you can play as the guy in the second level, but anyways. And but the story though is maybe a bit iffy. I think part of this changing up, while it might be interesting, it doesn't seem like there's necessarily enough character development as well. And so far, even though, like, you jump in from the first story, I'm not really too sure what's going on in this universe, so there's not as much of an intro as there should be. You kind of just have to kind of piece it together, and it'll probably all make sense as you go along. Now let's talk about the meat of the game, which is the multiplayer, the MOBA elements. There's 2 game modes in this beta. There's Incursion, which is the better of the 2 modes, and Meltdown. In Incursion, you basically just have to escort your minions and other players or whatever till you go, and you have to take out 2 enemy sentry bots on their side to win. And in Meltdown, there's 2 portals that you can get your minions into. They're both on the there's like, it's like a 2-lane map, kind of with like a third, it's kind of like a third lane in the middle, but not really. So there's 2-lane maps. You got some portals, and for the first half of the match or whatever, you're going into the portals that are, like, almost right next to each other, and then afterwards you have to go to a further portal closer to the enemy spawn. So this would be a fine mode, but I think a lot of the console players coming over, because I play this on PS4, so it's kind of cool because this is like kind of like the first of its kind coming to PS4. But with this particular mode in Battleborn, I think a lot of the console players have focused too much on the killing, and didn't seem to focus on the objective, because up until later, I mean, eventually people were getting like to max level. I saw one guy that was level 100, which I'm assuming is the level cap. It's like, how 100 did you do that? Other guys were level 60, 70. It was crazy. So later on in this beta, I think players learned it more. But initially, it was pretty easy because I could just go to the enemy portal and escort minions like 3 or 4 times in a row before some guy would finally come over and stop me, and I could get us, you know, half the way to victory just on that. But as I said before, this is definitely a MOBA. Other than like the minions, you know, you can like buy turrets in there, and you can buy support stations and all that for your characters. You know, you have the teleport function where you can like retreat back to base when you need to heal or just kind of reassess the situation. Get together with other teammates that are respawning and just go in another wave to increase your chances of victory. And of course, the major thing that's in MOBAs is characters level up within the match. So there's 10 levels, and you can choose between 2 perks at each level, and as you progress and increase in character ranks, because there's a command rank, which is your overall player rank, and then there's actual character ranks 1 through, I think it's 1 through 10 or whatever, for each, it might be 1 through 15, for each character, and you can unlock new skins and stuff in them, but you also unlock mutagens, which allow you to, or excuse me, mutations, which allow you to kind of change up some of the skills, and basically you get a third skill to pick from in certain levels. And it seems like it might be random. It doesn't necessarily unlock with the first skill first, but because like one character I got it for the mutation for the first skill, another character I got a mutation for the 7th skill down the tree. Now, initially, I would say the characters are all pretty well balanced, and the beginning roster they give you to play with is actually, for me personally, I actually liked most of those characters on average better. There were a couple good ones that I unlocked later on, and you know, by the time I finished with my experience with the beta, I had basically doubled my character roster. I think I got to like level 16. But later on, I realized like a couple of the characters, such as Marquise, were maybe not necessarily not designed for the multiplayer as much, but he was much more difficult to play, and he's listed as an advanced character. I think some of the characters that were listed as advanced maybe were more like easy, and some of them that were like complex were more like advanced, or some of them, you know, maybe some of them were even harder than what they said they were. But I think Marquise, he's just, you have to know him. He's a very supportive character, and he needs to be taking long-range shots. But on average, like, it's very difficult to get kills with him most of the time, unless you've used your ability where you can like slow them in this sphere, and then you manage to use like one of your powerful shots and just get accurate like critical hits on him. And then on the other hand, there's characters like Ambra, who was like the worst. I hated fighting her online. I played her out later. She was one of the last characters I unlocked. She's a healer character, but she also steals life from, in fact, most of the characters in her faction do. But she like can steal life like no other, and I played as her, and she, to me, seems like they need to tone down some of her abilities. And there's some of her abilities. One of her abilities even allows her, when she gets to 20% health, she instantly gains an overshield. So you can be shooting at her, and then you hit her down, knock her down to 20% health, and instantly she's got this shield that's even more powerful than her normal shield. Plus she can do lifesteal and all that. So overall, I think there needs to be some balancing done on that character. But the rest of them, I think, were pretty well balanced. And pretty much all of those characters were also very fun to play. I had my preferences. I normally played Wrath, Oscar Mike, or Montana, or Galilea, I think is her name. She was pretty cool later on. She's pretty devastating, but I don't think she's really OP. One of her perks seemed like they need to maybe like tone it down like a couple percent on the buff or something. But other than that, she was pretty well balanced, I think. Since some people might draw the comparisons to Overwatch, I've already listed some of the reasons why they're similar, but also there's some major differences between those two games as well. But I think one of the probably more accurate in the comparisons that people will argue with, you know, there's not much argument to be made here, is that the characters in Battleborn have character to them. They have a personality, just like the ones in Overwatch. I think at this point it's not as well defined, but each character kind of does have this personality. You will even see that fleshed out, at least with some of the characters in the main story as well. So that, I think, is really nice. Provide, you know, different than your normal FPS shooter where there's just generic soldiers at this point. They actually have character to them, which is nice. And it allows for, you know, deep gameplay and mechanics and different ways of playing each character. And on that note, I should also mention that the characters, there are a lot of varieties. And there's some that are made, you know, they're pushers. There's other ones that just deal heavy damage. There's the support ones for like healing as well. There's other ones that just get in there, kind of like distract the enemy, kind of throw them off guard to create these opportunities. So they're in there quite a bit. Just like Overwatch, I think Overwatch is a perfect game to demonstrate that. But here's the one thing I think Battleborn definitely pales in comparison to Overwatch, or just something that they should have taken advantage of, I think, and I like this idea in Overwatch, is that in Overwatch you can change out characters, switch out characters within the middle of the match, depending on what the scenario requires. But Battleborn doesn't have that. You know, it's more like traditional MOBAs. You pick the character, you're stuck with the character for the rest of the match. But I think it would be cool if they allowed you to switch it up. I mean, they would maybe have to rebalance things and change it for that. But still, nevertheless, I found this game incredibly fun. And also, despite the fact that I said there are support characters, every character is actually pretty good at just, you know, being able to make kills as well. So they can all contribute, you know, have pretty good damage. There's only a couple characters that I would say maybe not so much. But they clearly have strengths, but I think all the characters, you can still have a fairly well-rounded playstyle with most of them. One last thing I'd like to say on the gameplay, and this caught me off guard at first, but in the end I don't think it was too bad, but kind of because of some of the scaling of the maps, the jump on the character seemed really wimpy. Like, it's like I should clearly be able to jump up this little tiny rock step, but I couldn't for some reason. I think like Montana, it's especially a problem because he's a bigger, broodier character. But some of the other characters, you can even unlock double jump for. But even the double jumps, like, not quite as good as you would want. You have to still time your jumps perfectly in order to get up there. Because if you jump a little too soon or a little too late, you're either going to run into the, you know, you're just not going to get that height that you need to jump up somewhere. Problem that was most apparent during the beta, though, and it was especially bad, I heard at launch. I got into this on like the second or third day. I think it was the second day of the beta. But even throughout the beta, the matchmaking times were pretty slow, and apparently when it first went live, you know, it's a beta test, this is what things are for, apparently the servers just couldn't handle it. So that's good that they actually did a beta for this, but throughout the beta, the matchmaking times were pretty slow, and by the end they seemed to improve a bit, but sometimes, you know, they were still a little sketchy. But I have confidence that they'll probably get those worked out, you know, matchmaking times down to under a minute easily by the time the game launches. I already kind of touched on the characters a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them now, but I'd also like to talk about like the ways of upgrading and getting new gear for your characters works. But first, some of the other characters, as I said, you can unlock them through completing missions, or there's like a specified level rank that you can always unlock them at. But other than missions, you can also do it by completing certain challenges. Some of them are related to the single player, and some of them are related to the multiplayer. But what was super cool about this beta, and I think this is one of the best betas I've ever played actually, not only do they give you basically already a fourth of the story, but they give you access to nearly, if not every single Battleborn in the game. And from what Gearbox has said so far, there is not going to be any Battleborns that they are adding that you're going to have to pay money for. So there's not going to be any, I don't know if they said there's not going to be any microtransactions, but you're not going to be able to pay for actual power to get new characters or whatever. So incredibly good move, Gearbox. You gotta applaud them for that. And you know, I'm almost tempted to say they gave away too much in this beta, but you know, I'm gonna refrain from like coming out there and stating that is what I believe, because I think that there is still a ton of this. I think there's a ton of replayability. As I said, I kept coming back. I never got tired of the online. I mean, given I didn't play for like 30 hours or whatever, I only maybe spent 8 hours, probably about 8 hours playing the game, but maybe even 10. But I enjoyed every moment of this game that I played. But going on to the gear, you get the gear through card packs, and some of them are specific to your unit's faction, others are not. They're just random, and they're tiered, and you can buy them with I think there's going to be microtransactions, because you might be able to buy those with actual real money. But as of right now, in the beta, that wasn't opened up yet, but you could still acquire them through just playing, you know, the game and getting points. And I have a ton of points, and I never actually spent them on some of the card packs. But as I said, they're most easily acquired, I think, through the campaign. As I said before, it's a little bit faster, at least initially. So for the most part, that sums it up. I mean, this is definitely at its core, it is a first-person MOBA game, one of the first of its kind, and it's coming to console. I like this really great. You know, got the in-game economy and stuff, introducing a lot of players to stuff that they maybe haven't seen before, and I think they do it really well. And I said they gave you near access to all the Battleborns, if not all of them. And I think there's 24 of them. It's a pretty darn good selection. I never felt like I was overplaying one character during this time, and I didn't feel like, you know, I mean, I feel, as I said, there's a tiny bit of imbalances, but it's something I'm pretty sure they can fix, and it's not actually too bad in this state. I think they're on par for, you know, where they should be at for their release date in May. But overall, I'm not so sure. I would say this game, at least for me, is not necessarily worth $60 because the campaign's about 5 hours, which is not the core of the game. But even for these elements of the game, I'm not sure I would pay just for like a MOBA style game. It's not my favorite type of game. I really like it, but to me, it's not something that's a $60 game. I think $40 would be a more adequate price for this, but I'll probably pick it up when it goes down to $30 or something. But I'll probably end up buying it on the PC as well. But I'm glad to see that it's coming to the consoles as well. So overall, as you guys can tell, I'm pretty excited for this game, although I'm not buying it day one. But I would encourage you guys, if you were looking into this, if you are willing to drop $60 on kind of like a mobile style game, or you really like Gearbox, or you like what you see in the videos or what you've heard, you know, I would say, hey, go for it. I don't think most people will be disappointed. And I think it's a fantastic game at this point, and it can only get better from this point out. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like, and also check out some of the other videos on our channel. But until next time, we hope to see you guys in the next video. Yeah, Battleborn!